So today here on Hobby Market Watch for Collectors, a couple of new things that we're going to do. If you guys are watching the video specifically for the Predict the Price segment of the video series, I'm actually going to make that its own video series moving forward. So that's going to actually get pushed to Thursday of this week, and on a moving forward basis, we'll be doing those on Thursdays. Again, the Predict the Price is where we take a look at cards that are at auction, either at Golden Auctions, for the Thursday auctions, cards that are on eBay over the weekend, or for the upcoming PWCC auctions, which typically close on Sundays. We'll take a look at a couple of those cards. We'll predict the price based upon our pricing model, and we'll see how close we get. Before I jump in any further, I also want to mention, if you're into that type of content, or if you want to talk a little bit more about Hobby Market Watch and you haven't checked us out over on Twitter, I have been posting multiple times a day over on Twitter. If you aren't already, go check us out over on Twitter, and yeah, join the conversation over there. I know it's a little bit easier to post a tweet than to take the time to create a video sometimes, and so yeah, if you're interested in it, go check us out over on Twitter. Also, on today's video, we're going to do a little bit more than just take a look at the 5 cards that you see on the screen here. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some eBay sales data, which I think is going to be useful. It's interesting to take a look at, and that's where we're actually going to start today's video. In that, we're actually going to talk about maybe a little bit of a prime spot in time to focus on buying cards over the next couple of weeks, kind of the absolute low period from a price perspective, and we'll get into that here right now. So let's jump into that first. I am a data whore. You guys know this. I love looking at data. I love looking at trends and market analysis. It's kind of my thing outside of sports cards that's related to the sports card hobby. And so I was recently looking at the week of Thanksgiving, and I find it kind of interesting, right? When I look at the sales volume, which is this middle column, the kind of top row middle column, the sales volume over that 7-day period of time was 679,200 cards. That's still a staggering amount of cards, and it's actually up from 1 year ago. It's up about 9,000 transactions. From 2 years ago, which would have been kind of right at the market crash, we're up about 40,000 transactions. And 3 years ago, when we were kind of still in the heyday, this would have been 2020, we're up about 70, almost 80,000 transactions. And if I look at, that's not unique to just the Thanksgiving week. The Thanksgiving week was just relative to when I was pulling the data. When I look at kind of any week, any given week, those numbers are fairly close to the volume, which tells us there's a lot of activity taking place in the sports card marketplace. And that kind of goes against some of the inferred information when people say the sports card market is dead. No, it's not. The sports card market is not dead. It's just coming back down to a more sustainable level. Information that I want to talk about that's still on the screen before we go and take a look at those 5 cards. The average price last week of those 680,000 transactions, the average price came out to $32.26, which is a good, healthy number. I want to be honest, it's a good, healthy number. When we look at it from a year ago, that average price for that same week, again, Thanksgiving week, so Monday through Sunday, a year ago, $33.13, we're down 87 cents. That is telling us the spike is gone, and what are we doing? We're slowly trending down. That's what we've expected. That's what we've seen. Yes, we're seeing newer lows. We're not seeing all-time lows in most respects, specifically for the types of cards that are foundational to this hobby. We're not close to 2019 prices or 2018 prices, but we are continuing to trend downward in football, baseball, basketball, golf, hockey, soccer, any major sport of substance inside the hobby. That said, it is interesting when we go back 2 years ago. This is about when the crash took place. The average transactions were 600 and looks like we were 638,000. So let's call it 639,000 transactions the week of Thanksgiving 2 years ago. So that'd have been 2021. This is right at about the implode. This is when the market was getting ready to crash, or at the start of the crash. but the average transaction price that week was $43. So we are down $11.50 from just 2 years ago from an average transaction. So transactions are up, but prices are down. That's what we as collectors get to take advantage of. So this is a great time to be a collector inside this hobby. 3 years ago, this is kind of still in the peak of the pandemic. This is in 2020, November of 2020. Markets, certain sports hadn't quite peaked yet, but we were nearing peaks kind of universally across the board. The average transaction price that week was $45. So we are down $13.22 per transaction, but the volume is up almost 80,000 transactions from 3 years ago. So the hobby is healthy from the interest in the hobby. The collectors are here. The collectors are buying. We're just buying smarter. We're taking advantage of newer prices. We're not being aggressive. And the funny money that came into the marketplace during the pandemic is no longer here. Generally speaking, it's no longer here. All of this get rich quick. This is an alternative investment class, or asset class, or, take my crypto money and throw it into sports cards. Most of that money's dried up. And we are getting closer to sustainable prices, which is a good thing. Thing I would also call out that I found interesting when I looked across that same grouping of time, the cards on eBay for the 7-day periods of time, so the Thanksgiving week, the number of $1,000 transactions last week was 2,700, almost 2,800 transactions. When we go back 3 years during the peak, as we were approaching peak prices, we were only at 2,800. So again, these are cards, these are transactions that completed over $1,000. So we're seeing as many transactions, but the volume as a whole is way up and prices are considerably down. It's an indicator that there's still strength even at the $1,000 price point. And this is 1,000 and up. So, certainly some of the really high dollar numbers have come back down to earth. But interesting numbers. Again, the marketplace is healthy for collectors from a collector point of view. There's lots of us buying. I've bought cards in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be making a video, hopefully, if these cards show up today. There's a couple of cool cards that I want to share with you guys. But collectors are here. We're buying. We're just able to buy at more realistic prices than years past. Now, a top tip. When I look at this same data over a longer period of time, one of the things I was really trying to investigate is what was the prime time between now and Christmas? If you've watched my prior videos, come Christmas, we're actually going to see the market maybe move a little bit higher. And that's kind of cyclical, meaning it happens year over year, generally speaking. Obviously devoid of, spike years and some of the craziness that was taking place. But, traditionally we look at kind of pre-pandemic and, last year and what we're seeing, the makings of 2023 into 2024. I am expecting that we'll see a little bit of a spike into January, kind of post-Christmas. So what is the best time to buy? I was really curious about that. And there's a 3-day period of time that I found, which seems to be the best or most prime time to buy. And that is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Obviously, that will correlate this year with December 7th, 8th, and 9th. Every year, that's slightly off. But that Thursday, Friday, Saturday seems to be when prices are at their lowest before they start moving a little bit higher as we move into Christmas and then post-Christmas into the new year. When I look at that 3-day period of time, all three of those are down 9%. It's literally 8.99, 8.99, and 9%. And then we see the market, the day over day market start creeping up a little bit. So if there is a auction that you are looking at, the 7th, 8th, and 9th is the time frame that you'd want to be targeting. And then you should be plotting out your best deals, your lowest offers. Most of this, I would say, is going to be more applicable to the actual auctions, since that is not controlled by an acceptance of a seller. But I will be heavily looking at auctions on the 7th, 8th, and 9th for anything that I'm looking to add to my collection. And then I'm going to be very aggressive in my bids, meaning very low bids, with the expectation that a couple of those will hit for potentially prices that are 9% lower than the Thanksgiving week. So the reference week was Thanksgiving week. What was the prime low spot from that point? We're about 10% lower for that 3-day stretch. So that might be a top tip for some of you guys. Hopefully, many of you guys will watch this and take advantage of that, or find an opportunity to take advantage of that. Let's take a look at these 5 cards. We got 5 for you today. Interesting cards. The 2019 Topps Chrome Stephen Curry rookie card. This is becoming a foundational card. He has solidified himself as being a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer. Arguably top 10 player all time in the NBA. This is a very important card to the hobby. It's been a bubble card. Obviously, this is a PSA 10 that we're looking at, so it's definitely got a bit of a bubble price. But the interesting thing is this thing just sold for a staggering number, in my opinion, at $17,800. Very active auction over on eBay, 68 total bids. It completed on the 21st of November, so a lot of activity, but $17,800. The prior sale was $22,678, and that was about a month earlier. So it sold for about $5,000 less in 1 month. My projected price, the Chasing Majors projected price, again, using the data analysis and the formula that I built, I actually had the price fair market value closer to $26K, and all-time peaks, $69,000. $69,000. That's a crazy number. That's a very good automobile. That is for sure. All-time peaks were, as you'd expect, back in 2021, early 2021. That was an eBay sale before, with PWCC as the seller. That was before they were booted off and lost their relationship with eBay. But interesting card, definitely. This, I believe, is also numbered out of 999. And a very kind of tough year. There wasn't production that year was down. And so most of these cards, Harden also has a rookie this same year. There might be somebody else that I'm forgetting. I know like DeRozan does, but the Harden and the Steph Curry are definitely prime cards to kind of target, and definitely interesting cards, and they don't sell a ton. There's that card doesn't sell all that often, so that's why it made this week's list. Another card that made this week's list, and I'll explain why here in just a second. 2001 SP Authentic Ichiro. This is also a PSA 10. Again, normally I avoid trying to publish the PSA 10 because they are bubble markets, PSA 10 markets. Yes, there are some of you that collect PSA 10s. The vast majority of us are probably looking for better value. So we historically have kind of avoided PSA 10s in cards like this. But why is this card important? If you are into the post-war Hall of Fame registry, which is a wildly popular collection that many of us collect. I collect it. I know many folks that watch my channel collect it. There's also the future Hall of Fame PSA registry. And the card that's selected on the future is the card that eventually makes it over to the post-war Hall of Fame registry. And the SP Authentic card is that card. And so it's been a very desirable card for a couple of those factors. Now, it is print numbered. I think it's $12.99, maybe there's 1,250 copies of this. This is a card that does not sell all that often. PSA 10, I think the pop is like under 200. Pujols is also a rookie in this year, and both of those cards sell for pretty large sums of money. This card last sold back on the 20th. Again, eBay auction, 43 total bids, and it sold for $4,058, which was about $500 above my predicted price and outside of my normal deviation. But one of the reasons why I want to talk about this card, Ichiro is, in my mind, and I think a lot of your minds, a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a shoe-in at this point in time. I believe he's a first ballot guy. And at the time of the announcement is when this card will hit its all-time peak. Maybe not all-time peak, but it will get close to all-time peaks. All-time peak on this was 12,000 during the pandemic. Of course, pandemics set new all-time peaks, but historically, the big catalyst event that we'd be looking for this card is the announcement that he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's the time when this card is generally at its highest. Then it'll come down, and during the actual induction and post-induction, what we're actually doing at that moment in time as a hobby is it will reestablish a new floor. And in that new floor, then you'll see that card only generally appreciate from that new floor. So this is a card I believe is going to buck the trend over the next couple of years. Obviously, the last two transactions, the one back on the 20th, there was a transaction at end of September 2023, also on eBay, where it sold for $5,300. Even though our Chasing Majors projected price is $3,500, I actually do believe this is going to buck the trend just because we're getting closer and closer to Ichiro's first ballot nomination, Hall of Fame announcement. So this is one of those cards. This is an it card right now. It's going to be an it card through and even post Hall of Fame announcement. This is the card everybody will be chasing, or one of them. So this is a card I think that bucks the trend over the next couple of years. As we decrease as a marketplace, I think this one generally will kind of, float above many of its peers. Next card, baseball card as well, Willie Mays. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is Willie Mays, and I've mentioned this, by the way, in former videos. He's the oldest living baseball Hall of Famer. He's in his early 90s. I want to say he's like 93. But I know I personally have been targeting, and this was a card I was actually looking at. I did not buy this card. It went for a little bit north of what I wanted to pay for it. But in a PSA 4, this 55 Bowman sold for $366 over at Golden back on the 24th. My projected price was $330, so it's not that far off of the 10% plus or minus 10% deviation of price. The sell prior to that was pretty much spot on with the projections. That sell was only about a week before. It looks like 9 days earlier over on eBay. But because Willie Mays is being seen by a lot of the hobby as the oldest living Hall of Famer, and one thing that generally takes place is when we lose a Hall of Famer, we normally see a spike in prices. And again, much like we talked about with the Ichiro card a moment ago, you'll see the spike and then a new floor will be established, especially with like these tier 1A, grade A, which Willie Mays is easily in. If there's something better than inner circle Hall of Famers, he's in that super elite 1%. Or a fraction of a 1%, the 0.00001% crowd. Willie Mays is certainly in that. Of course, he doesn't maybe get the hobby love that Mantle does, Mantle being the king of the hobby, but Mays is inside that. In fact, in my opinion, he was a better all-around player than Mantle was. That's a different argument for a different day, but this is a card that when he does pass will spike up. We'll see a new price. And so Willie Mays is one of those cards, specifically the 1950s cards, I've noticed have not necessarily taken as big of a dip, and I don't expect that they're going to continue to trend at the same downward at the same pace as some of his contemporaries in the sport. So interesting card to take a look at. Hopefully you guys have what you need in the Willie Mays space, because at his passing we will see spikes in his prices and we will find new lows, and maybe those new lows after that won't be as low as current prices. So right now, Willie Mays to me is a buy for sure. Next card, maybe a little bit unique for the channel here, boxing card. Joe Louis, one of the greatest to ever do it, obviously big name inside the sport. The 48 Leaf set, of course, 48 Leaf, we had football, we had baseball, and we had boxing. This is a great card. This is just one of those like eye-catching cards. For me, I don't often think of boxing cards, but this, when I think of kind of historical boxing cards, this Joe Louis is one of the cards that kind of comes to my mind. A great card, PSA 4, a great kind of centering, obviously not perfect at a PSA 4, but good overall eye appeal on this card. Certainly grabbed my attention. That's why I earmarked it to take or to add it to the conversation today. The interesting thing, this card peaked out a year ago, November of 2022, and it was a purchase over on eBay for $711. That looks like a verifiable sale. Cards hadn't sold. Didn't come back onto the marketplace after that. So somebody really wanted the PSA 4 a year ago, and they paid $711. My projected price was $390. It sold for $373. So again, it's within that deviation. Somebody got a good value. They got under current market, expectations, at least my current market expectations. I think somebody did a good job here. Is it a card that possibly goes lower in upcoming years? More than likely, yes. But I also don't think that it's, a bad price at $373. Just a little bit higher than what I was wanting to pay. I was looking for, when I had my eye on this card, if it would have come at a very deep discount, I probably would have gotten into the running here. But prior sale to that was $414, also within our deviation. So, the boxing marketplace appears to be on par with what we would expect. Final card today, again, guys, if you are looking for Predict the Price segment, we're going to do its own dedicated video next Thursday, or this upcoming Thursday. We'll add a couple of cards there. I have one suggestion card, of course. If you have a card you'd like me to look at and do a Predict the Price on, send that card over to me. Don't send me a hyperlink. I won't click on it. Just send me the details and what auction house, and I'll go find the card. I'll add it to the video. As well, if you're not following us over on Twitter right now is the place where I'm posting the vast majority of my content. I took as much time off Twitter as I did here on YouTube. So over the last week, I didn't post at all. I completely walked away from social media just to kind of get a mental break. But now that we're back, I've generally been posting over on Twitter in the prior weeks, multiple times a day. And it's a lot of Predict the Price stuff. It's a lot of kind of market reactions to cards that are selling. And so if you like this type of content, go check us out over on Twitter. Chasing Majors is the handle, same handle. Go find us, give us a subscribe to the channel, check out the content. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. The last card I want to talk about, 55 Topps All-American. I love the Topps All-American cards. This is Red Grange, one of the pioneers of the sport for professional football, maybe not necessarily NFL, but of professional football. And, this was just a great looking card for a PSA 4, good overall registration, good coloring. And, I think that it's really vintage or early football stuff is still something that's still underappreciated by the hobby. Red Grange is one of the most recognizable kind of legacy names out there inside the sport of football. This is a great card. Our predicted price was $85. It did sell well above that at $120. That includes buyer's premium over on PWCC this past Sunday. The all-time peak was actually set this year, which you don't see a lot of all-time peaks being set in 2023. For old vintage cards specifically, but February, this card, all-time peak 161. Wow, that's the all-time peak I have in my data sets. I also did scrub a couple of other sources, free sources, to see if maybe my data was just lacking on this card, but it appears that this is the all-time peak price. Prior sale was only $86, so pretty big variation. Obviously, this one sold for a bit of a premium. It's a card I would have loved to have added to my collection personally. But at the price point, once it got over $85, I was completely out. I was actually looking to add this card to my collection for hopefully considerably less than that. But it's a card that typically sells between $80 to $150. Not consistently, because it's not the most common card out there, specifically in a PSA 4, but it's a card that gets a lot of interest and can sell for above market price or market condition prices. So this most recent sell did. Great card. Love the old vintage football stuff. Love to add that to this video series when we can. Hope you guys enjoyed this, guys. Again, check us out over on Twitter, X, whatever they call themselves today. That's where the vast majority of my time has been going as far as content creation. And but I will be putting out a couple of videos. I've got some multiple weeks worth of pickups that I've not necessarily done kind of a mail day video on that I need to share with you guys. I've completed some set registries or portions of set registries, so I'm going to look to make some of those types of videos in the upcoming weeks. I owe you guys that are interested in ComC videos. I owe you guys some ComC stuff. So if you're interested in those, know that they're coming. Predict the price segment. We're going to add that as a video series moving forward on Thursdays. So if you're interested in kind of proactive price analysis, we'll actually start some of that this upcoming Thursday and use the same graphics that we're using over on Twitter. So if you want to see it before we do the video, check us out on Twitter. Chasing Majors. All right. As always, guys, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. Everybody's safe and happy. Hope you guys are all collecting. Chat with you in the next one.